Thanks to Baron of Dice, Grey Matter Gaming, and Monument Hobbies for sponsoring this video. What happens to the zealously devoted when the veil is lifted and their unfeeling masters callously spend their lives in service of inscrutable goals and hollow victory? We'll talk about that whenever the new Deathcore of Krieg army box comes out, but we get something similar with today's detachment, the Genestealer Cults Final Day. If you'd like to read more, head on over to goonhammer.com, link in the description. Detachment Rule: Psionic Parasitism. You can take units with the Vanguard keyword from the Tyranids Codex as allies with your Genestealer cult, excluding Genestealers, Broodlords, and aircraft, and how many depends on the game size. For a Strike Force game, it's going to be 1,000 points. At the end of your movement phase, for each Tyranid Synapse unit from your army, you can select one friendly Genestealer cult unit, except pure strain Genestealers themselves, and one Tyranids unit, both within 9 inches and visible to the Synapse unit. The cult unit takes D3+1 mortal wounds, and the Tyranid unit heals the same amount. The selected Tyranids unit also gets +1 to hit until the start of your next movement phase. All Tyranid units also get a 6-inch aura called Catalyst, which gives all Genestealer cult units +1 to hit. The Vanguard Invader keyword includes utility pieces like Lictors and Gargoyles, but also larger monsters like Trigons and the Winged Hive Tyrant. Cheap lone operatives and fast infantry make it easy to apply the hit buff, while the big monsters fill a missing niche in the Genestealer cult roster, and benefit both from the hit buff and the healing. This opens multiple avenues for list building, and determining whether to lean into cultists buffing Tyranids, Tyranids buffing cultists, or a balance between the two will result in radically different lists. Finally, don't overlook the value in damaging your own units. Genestealer cult players are all too familiar with the strategy of leaving a couple models in a unit alive to prevent it from being brought back, and this gives you a predictable way to just kill the remaining models in a unit so you can put a copy back into reserves with Cult Ambush. These enhancements are great, with 2 for Tyranids and 2 for Genestealer cult characters. You'll almost certainly want both cultist enhancements, with the Tyranid ones being great picks for a Winged Hive Tyrant. Synaptic Augur lets one of your Tyranids heal twice as much when they eat your cultists, with the note that it doesn't cause twice as many wounds. The Tyranid Prime and Parasite of Mortrex are probably too squishy to get much out of this, so it's gonna be on a Hive Tyrant. This is a 6 wound heal on average, and that's pretty big. Enraptured Damnation makes a Genestealer cult unit impossible to target with Overwatch. When something as cheap as Infernus Marines can ruin your dudes' day, this is a great pick. Vanguard Tyrant gives +1 strength and AP to a Winged Hive Tyrant's melee weapons. This gives your Tyrant back the +1 strength they'd get from the Synapse rule in a Tyranid's army, and with an extra point of AP to boot. It's a solid upgrade. Inhuman Integration gives a Genestealer Cults unit sustained hits 1 when they target a unit within 6 inches of a Tyranid unit. This synergizes well with the Detachment rule, and works in both shooting and melee. It's a versatile upgrade, and it's worth taking. This is one of the best stratagem sets Genestealer Cults have access to, and with a mix of positioning and output options that are faction specific but unit agnostic for a flexible toolbox. Hyper Ferocity lets one of your Genestealer Cult units reroll wound rolls of 1 in the fight phase, or all wound rolls if they're near a Tyranid unit. You want to build on this synergy already, and this is a great way to do just that. Psi Surge boosts a Tyranid unit's Catalyst aura by 3 inches till your next command phase. This is cool for pushing that +1 to hit aura further and spreading out a little. Avenge the Star Children is used on an enemy unit after they destroy one of your Tyranid characters. All cult units get +1 to hit and wound that enemy unit for the rest of the game. The threat of this alone is a potent terror weapon, and you can try to get it easily by sacrificing a cheap character. Divine Imperative ups the reliability of your charges, giving a cult unit both a +1 and rerolls to its charge distance, provided they're charging a unit engaged with a Tyranid unit. This can be used to attempt charges out of Deep Strike in a pinch, but mostly it's good for supporting a key charge, especially if you've already burned your CP reroll. Darting Attacks lets a Tyranid unit fall back, shoot, and charge. This is always great for getting a unit out of a pinch, away from a tar pit, or just moving on to the next target. Resistance Tunnels is this detachment's take on the ol' uppy downy, letting you pull a unit off the board and into strategic reserves. Use this to pressure your opponent, grab objectives and secondaries, or otherwise get some late game board control with ease. A solid final day list needs enough Tyranid investment to be able to consistently apply buffs to their Genestealer Cultist pals, but not so many that the cult units themselves aren't able to make use of those buffs. In general, that'll either look like a handful of monsters that need to be focused down while the cult units do damage, or a wide spread of smaller, cheap roll-in operatives that are difficult to remove under a wave of Genestealer Cultists. Really, it's about striking a balance between the two halves of the army, and finding ways to exert the most pressure while you do so. Don't forget that you still have access to the Cult Ambush rule, so you can keep those cultists coming, and Tyranid Raveners are a great utility piece for uppy-downy shenanigans. The challenge will be getting your Tyranids where they need to be to support your cultists without losing too many bugs in the process. Now let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. With stratagem usage and the pool of Tyranid and Genestealer Cult units, this army can functionally be anywhere on the table at any time. +1 to hit is a welcome boost in an army where the melee attacks generally hit on 3s and the shooting usually hit on 4s. Regenerating wounds on your big bugs will make them tougher than ever, and it gives you an easy way to kill off units you want to bring back with Cult Ambush. Now the price of that synergy is that while the two halves of your army are stronger together, they are weaker apart, so a smart opponent can focus down half your army and weaken the other half. Armies or units that are good at screening or deep strike denial will hamper your plans. Without Synapse in the Tyranid Codex, your bugs are weaker and more prone to failing battle shock tests. The final day detachment is a winning combo of fluff and crunch, taking the narrative of the day of the Tyranid invasion and combining it with strong rules, effective enhancements, and a great toolbox of stratagems. With a good mix of units and tools on offer, it should also perform well competitively, although Genestealer Cult armies are already complex enough without bringing Tyranid units into account. It might not be the absolute best attachment available to either army, but it should prove highly effective in a skilled player's hands. All 4 of them. The revolution will not be televised, but it will be written about on goonhammer.com. If you like what we do, you can also support us on Patreon for extra features in our apps, Discord access, and more stuff that I'm probably forgetting right now. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Baron of Dice, Monument Hobbies, and Grey Matter Gaming for sponsoring this video. I've been Catalyst McLichter, and sorry, I can't make it to your Ascension Day. I've got a thing at 6. Thanks for watching.